morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This has been a very interesting set of webinars for us on TeamQ. It's a very unique application and one that is extremely well received out there, and there's a lot of information to kind of assimilate on this one. So we're doing a two-part one this time. We're going to also have David talk about our integration to the Click to Coach product from Envision, which is a really powerful extension to any call center, and certainly we're talking about it with TeamQ. So let's go ahead and start by talking about TeamQ. It's kind of interesting. When we first started with TeamQ, we struggled a little bit to explain to people what it was. It doesn't fit neatly into any kind of traditional classification. You can talk about it like it's a small ACD system, and that's kind of where the conversation starts, although we have to be careful because it's a little different than that. But it is a call routing application for informal work groups. We talk about next generation workers. And while this can be configured as a traditional small ACD queue to distribute calls, there's a lot more in it, and a lot of the appeal comes from some other features. It can have up to 50 different teams or queues on a system with up to 25 active agents per team. And I know some people think that number is a little low, but we'll see why when we look at how this system actually functions. You can have up to 250 agents on a system. This is about distributing calls, and it'll do the traditional ACD-UCD method, but there's also an agent-controlled call routing method that's very, very powerful, particularly for specific kinds of work groups where they aren't just taking calls, where they're trying to balance calls and other duties. And then, of course, it comes with all the standard pieces and as a supervisor interface. TeamQ itself has a very basic call recording capability. For serious call recording, you're going to see it towards the end of the presentation. That's why we've partnered with Envision. And then there's a reporting package. The benefits here, when we go out and look at customers, we're really looking for those work groups where the ability to have the agent have some input on the call routing is an important part of it. And that might be because agents have different skill sets, they're covering different territories, they're balancing workloads between projects and taking calls. It's just not quite traditional. It does provide a nice economic small ACD traditional solution as well. So if you go out and you look at a typical customer, there's always ways to route calls. The most basic, of course, is a hunt group on the PBX or response group on Skype. And if you look at that, it does a good job in just simple call distribution. But for many groups, they need more than that. It's just not enough. And of course, up to now, the other option was kind of on the other end of the spectrum, was some sort of contact center or ACD system. Very powerful, very full-featured. And for a traditional call center environment where agents are taking call after call after call, does a very good job. But it's a little restrictive for some groups where that's not what they're looking for. They're not process workers, where they're simply taking call after call after call. They're more knowledge workers, where they're taking calls and then working on projects and doing various things. And that space in the middle is where TeamQ really shines. It fits, it fits at either side of that as well. But we'll look at the features in TeamQ that make it unique. So we're looking at teams fielding calls, but not just fielding calls. And we almost always talk about IT help desks because they're very, very easy to understand and well-known examples of this type of group where, yes, they take calls and support emails, and they also go visit a desk to load a patch, and they also do research for things on the internet, and they also work on an afternoon deploying the new network bridge. I mean, they're kind of a multitasking type of group. And a traditional call center just doesn't work for them because they're not just taking call after call after call. They're juggling multiple kinds of tasks, and it's a very informal call distribution process that they're looking for. And they're not always just sitting at their desk. And this is true of almost any group of people receiving calls. With TeamQ, as long as you're somewhere where you can have your Windows PC connected to your network, and that certainly could be remotely through a VPN, and you have a telephone number where the PBX that's answering the call can transfer the call to them, then those agents can work anywhere. So the ability to come into the office in the morning and work at your desk and then go home in the afternoon, work from your home office, it's just an inherent piece in the architecture, the way TeamQ is built. The whole goal here is to enable agents to have a little more say in the calls. Which calls they take, when they take calls, when they choose to do another task, and maybe some rerouting of calls as they see them in the queue as well. And this kind of functionality requires a screen, so we can give the agents some visibility into what the application is doing, what calls are there, what agents are doing, and it has to be very, very flexible in terms of how it can handle calls. So one of the great things about this, and this is true of almost all of our application modules, since this is an application module that runs on CXE, it's very affordable. There's no hardware required for this. Assuming you already have a CXE system or you're looking at purchasing one, this is simply another application module that you load on top. It integrates to the phone system with the same ports you're already using with CXE. There's no expensive CTI connection required. Works on any PBX across multiple PBXs. So this is an extremely flexible way to deliver a very enhanced kind of call routing, no matter what your network looks like. And we went out when we first started looking at TeamQ. One of the problems with deploying agents from a real call center is the cost. Now, if you have a group of people in a room doing the same call, time after time after time, and you're just really driving to save seconds off that call, to shave as little time as you can just to make it more profitable, call centers are great. But if you have a little more flexible environment, you probably don't need all of that, and the cost for an agent license, recurring costs year after year, can be fairly high. And the way that ours is structured makes the ROI very attractive. One of the things you'll get as part of attending this is we'll send you a copy of the ROI paper that we did, and it will talk about exactly how we came up with these numbers. And most people look at this, and cost is really not going to be a problem when you're looking at deploying TeamQ. Of course, the important thing is how you're handling your callers. Your customers are always the most important thing. So let's look at the caller experience. And this goes a long way in explaining how this application really works. So we'll start with a caller, and they call in. Calls come in through the PBX. One way or another, they're routed to TeamQ. That can be through a DID number or transferring from a menu. There's all sorts of different ways to get the calls there. CXE routes it to the TeamQ application. We answer the call. We play the default greeting. Welcome to the IT help desk, let's say. Well, right away, the first thing we do is we capture the caller ANI number. Data is king in this application. We're really stressing, how much data we can get from the caller and about the caller to help make logical call routing decisions. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to capture that ANI number. We bring that caller in. Now, this is really the unique piece for TeamQ. Because we're drawing on the strengths of the CXE platform, we can actually have an interface with that caller where we gather information. So we can play prompts to the caller and gather back information. So up to 4 questions can be asked to the caller, 2 multiple choice questions and 2 with numeric input. In this case, we're going to ask them, what is your account number or employee number or serial number, any kind of numeric input. And then we're going to ask them a multiple choice question. We're doing the IT help desk, so we're going to ask them what operating system they're using. So caller comes in, they enter their employee number, they go ahead and the operating system prompt for multiple choice says, press 1 for Windows, 2 for Linux. Very, very simple application. And as we go through this, by the way, keep in mind these are all configurable options. The minimum feature would be a prompt saying, please hold for the next available agent. We can make this as minimalist as you want. Or we can go the whole route and ask all the questions and play all the confirming prompts. It's really up to what kind of customer experience you're trying to create. So now we've got this metadata on the caller. We captured their account number from a DTMF entry. We captured the operating system that we're trying to support for them on a multiple choice question, and we captured the ANI number. And we certainly could take this information now and display it up on a screen. And the agents can look at that, and there's some useful information in there. Maybe the telephone number tells them, what area they're calling from, and maybe they have area-based coverage, and maybe the Linux operating system is certainly important if you're looking at a skill set kind of choice. The account number, it's pretty hard to get any real value out of a numeric account number. It would be much better if we could show more detailed information on who's calling in. And with TeamQ, you certainly can. And we do that by performing what we call a data dip. A data dip lets us take the numeric information, and using a simple script, we go out to an external database on the customer site. We're just showing Salesforce here as an example. It can be any database that has programmatic access through a web service, a COM API, stored procedure call, and any of those traditional methods. We take that number, we push it into the database, and we bring back up to 15 different pieces of information, which probably you'll never do that many, but certainly we can go ahead and put in that account number and bring back the warranty status of the customer, the name of the customer, the name of the company, the product that they have supported, any number of truly useful pieces of information. And then we're going to be able to use that information to be displayed on the screen to give the agents a much better idea of what that call is about. So now we've got all that information from the caller. As an option, we can do a time in queue announcement. So we can say your position in queue is 2, estimated wait time is 4 minutes. This, of course, is calculated real time based on the last hour's worth of calls in the queue. This isn't always going to be used because remember, if you're doing like a skills-based routing scenario here, agents aren't necessarily going to always take the oldest call. So this is available if you want to use it, but it isn't necessarily always going to be used. And then you'll present them with their choices. Hold for a representative, press 1. To leave a message, press 2. To request a callback, press 3. So we do have different modes of call distribution. And so as I said before, we can emulate an ACD queue, in which case we wouldn't ask them any of this. We might play the time in queue, and then we'd simply put them in the queue and they would go to the next available agent. But in this case, we're emulating what we call a pull mode, meaning we're going to put the agent in charge of which calls they take. So now we're giving the caller a little choice on how they want to be handled. Obviously, press 1, they stay in the queue. Press 2, we'll put them into the voicemail box associated with the queue. Press 3, we'll say we've got your call back, thank you, we'll disconnect the call. And that call record still goes onto the screen and it ages just like all calls. The difference is when the agent chooses to take that call, we automatically make a call back to that person. So we're not tying up ports and that caller doesn't have to sit there on the phone. Again, depending on the type of queue you have, different options can be offered. So the caller decides to stay in the queue, and they go ahead and they press 1, and now I have 3 calls in my queue. And basically on my screen, which we'll see a little bit later, agents can look and see there are 3 calls waiting to be answered. The oldest call, in fact, the oldest 2 calls are looking for Windows support, and the newest call in the queue is looking for Linux. Now, if we flip this around to our agent experience, I've got 3 agents here logged in, and they probably all can do Windows because that's one of the most typical things you'd support, but there's one of them that's also a Linux specialist. There's not enough Linux in this particular company for everyone to have Linux skills, so there's just one agent there that's really a specialist in that. Now, as these agents look at the queue, they get to decide which call to take based not just on how old it is, but on what the caller is looking for. Agent number 1, being the Linux specialist, says, well, I could take the oldest call in the queue, but who knows how long I'm going to be tied up on that, and that Linux caller really can't be handled by anyone else. So I'm going to select the Linux call. That leaves the other agents and the other calls to go ahead and take their choices. But as the caller, what I've done now is I've gone ahead and I've connected to this one. And again, not necessarily just a skill specialty. We could handle customers based on territories. So I can see what territory they're in, or level of customers, gold, platinum status customers. Any number of pieces of information on that screen can be used to make the correct decision for which call I take. Now, as the specialist, when I'm done, I hang up, I'm done with that call, and I look back at the queue, and there's some calls in there now. I now have a choice. I can take another call. There is a Linux call in there. I could take a Windows call if they were really, really old, or perhaps I have a project I'm working on, and I can just monitor the queue and go about my business with my project. There's a difference between process workers and knowledge workers. Process workers take call after call after call, and they all do the same thing. That's a traditional call center. Knowledge workers also have personal workflow that they have to balance with the call workflow. That's the real strength of this product is for a knowledge worker, I get to make choices based on what my requirements are. In this case, since I'm a Linux specialist, I might well take that Linux call. But I might also have enough other projects where I could choose to leave the queue running, but go ahead and not take a call while I do something else. The strength of that call routing is really kind of why people tend to buy this. One of the most important reasons is the functionality available based on that. Now, if we look at a screen, this is the typical TeamQ screen, and as an agent, I would see this, and what I can see automatically, all the other agents that are on calls, In this case, the screen's been set up to highlight those in blue. I can see all the open calls, the ones that don't have any agent ID next to them, how long they've been waiting, who it is, what they want, whatever information I gathered from the caller and from the data dips can be displayed on the screen, including how long they've been waiting. Now, there's also one here that's a little anomaly. The call from Bill with network problems shows on hold, and it shows the agent's name, but that agent you can see is on another call. And indeed, what happened here, Bill probably called in earlier, and Tom talked to him, and he went ahead and said, reset your machine. That's what all good tech support people tell you to do. And then he went on, and Tom got on another call. Bill reset his machine, and as is always the case, that didn't fix it. He called back in. Tom saw that call came in and said, okay, it doesn't make any sense for anyone else to talk to Bill, or they'll just ask him to reset his machine. So he hit that call and hit hold, and he's now reserved that for his next call. As a supervisor for this queue, I can look up there and say, I've got that Martin call, and it's been holding over a minute, and our SLAs, that I don't want that to show up on our records like that. So I'm going to highlight that call and hit redirect, and I'm going to send that call to another queue or another number or a specialist group or anywhere else I want. Or maybe I'll hit message and send that call straight to voicemail. So as an agent, I can do things beyond just take the call. I can hold the call, redirect it, and send it to voicemail. That's a pretty popular set of options for handling calls effectively in the queue. If way back when we gave that caller choices and they chose a callback, then they hung up and went about their business, that call stayed in the queue, and either it got pushed to me if I was in push mode, or as an agent, I looked at that call and said, oh, that's the logical call for me to take, and I hit that button, and now what happens is this make call screen pops up saying this is a callback, here's the number. I click dial, it makes that outgoing call. If that party answers, I hit submit, and now I'm on the call and the record is being generated just like any other type of call. If they don't answer, I have the ability to re-queue that call, and I, based on whatever, if it was a no answer, I might go ahead and re-queue it for an hour out. If it was a busy, I might re-queue it for 5 minutes out. There's all sorts of choices I have here, and I can put notes for the call as well. So I have all these choices for how I handle calls and which calls I handle. And basically the architecture here is just a simple call comes in from either internal or external, goes through the PBX, goes into CXE, we answer those questions, and then basically we queue that call up, and we now have that call available to be transferred to an agent. Now, one of the things that call centers provide, high-end call centers, is something called a screen pop. Screen pops are very, very popular. Now, these became popular because, again, a traditional ACD queue loves to shave seconds off of a call. So if I can somehow, when I answer that call as an agent, automatically get the screen, whatever my application I'm running is, open to that record or popped up to that record, that's a good thing. So we also do a screen pop, but we do it different. As I said, we don't have a really expensive CTI link involved here. So the way we're going to do a screen pop is manually. When I take a call as an agent, I can right-click on a column. Let's say I'm using the identification column. And when I right-click on that column, I'm going to send out a command to whatever application I'm running on my desktop. And in this case, we're using Salesforce. I'm going to send out a command to Salesforce, and that's going to open up the screen on my app to match that caller's identification. And I'm using that identification number they put in there. And you can see down there that I'm passing in the customer ID as an input field. Most desktop applications have the ability to have a screen commanded up and active based on a command line prompt of some sort. And what you see here in the bottom is just the programming for this queue that is going to go ahead and do the pop. So when I right-click on that ID column and hit the screen pop button, up comes the screen opened automatically. So we can do the data dips and this kind of programming as part of our professional services group. There's pricing in the book, and it's very reasonable because this isn't like building custom applications. It's basically all command line programming. Since agents are going to make decisions based on things in the queue, it also makes sense to give them visibility to the queue, not just the calls. So there's an agent status screen they can look at, and it'll show all the agents that are logged in. If they're on calls, how long they've been on the calls. If they're idle, how long they've been idle. If they're in any of the custom busy statuses that the administrator can build. So I can build any kind of statuses I want. This is just using a busy one. I could have a desk visit one. In this case, a desk visit, for an IT group, you could put yourself in desk visit status because you have to go load a patch at that last person you talk to. So any of those kinds show here, and I can actually even configure it to show agents that are signed out of the system. So this is how I make decisions based on, do I take lunch now? Do I go work on a project now? I get not just visibility of the calls in the queue, but of all the agents as well. Like any good, call management system, we have all sorts of information available to the supervisors. We have call and agent logs that are actual kind of real-time snapshots of what's gone on in the queue in the past. And we have call, agent, and queue logs where you can read out all the detail that you want. And all of these, of course, can also be exported, although the logs tend to be more for real-time use to see what's going on. For exporting, we have a full reports package. And this is a very, very robust reports package. It's written in Microsoft SQL report writer, meaning customers can manage these reports, change these reports, write their own reports. It's all very, very easy to do. All the reports tend to have the same typical format. It has a list of all the things you're looking at. In this case, we're looking at agent call activity. And then at the bottom of the report, of course, it'll have the summaries. And all of the basic things are here. All the basic kinds of pieces of information that people are looking for in queue and call management are available from the reports package. So what we're looking for here is the kind of call routing scenario where information about the customer is important, both gathering it up front and perhaps pushing it into a CRM type system. Almost any work group is integrated with functionally with a screen application, meaning if I'm taking calls, I'm doing something on the screen. And as we'll see in a few minutes when David comes on, the integration of all that data makes a really powerful tool for a call center. So from our point of view, we're simply going to connect just like we do to any phone system. Like I said before, no CTI link, just the ports that we use, the same ports that we're using for voicemail and call processing. And then on the backside, just on the network. This is a very simple thing to deploy. We have a lot of customers that have 4 or 5 phone systems, and with a single CXE system supporting it all, and we can put agents on all of those phone systems, even in the same queue or group. So very, very powerful tool for the more complex scenarios that are out there. So if you look at a kind of wrapping up the process, call comes in, we talk to the caller. In this case, with the help desk, we're going to ask them, if we're going to use callbacks, we probably will verify their callback number. If they like the callback number, then we'll ask them the questions. We're asking just 2 questions here, a numeric entry and a multiple choice. We go ahead and maybe read them the queue statistics, depending on how we're handling calls. We give them the choices for the callback, and then we put the call up on the screen, and the agents have all the ability to do this. Now, one thing we've added to this presentation, when we first released TeamQ, it only used transfers through the PBX. So we would transfer the call to the PBX, we would drop off the call, and that required the agents to hit a hang up button when they were done. And you can see the hang up button on the screen. But in this case, it's grayed out because now we also have the option where when a call comes in, we will actually bridge it through CX. And when we bridge it through CX, that actually lets the customer hang up or the agent hang up, and that will disconnect the call automatically. So that actually gives us the ability to, and for our own simple call recording, this is our architecture as well. So basic kind of more a knowledge worker group kind of call distribution is what we're looking at here. And many of those people have advanced needs that go beyond what we can actually provide in terms of how much information is gathered and how it's available and how it's used. And for that reason, our business development group went out and found this company called Envision. And we'll let David talk about what they do for us.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining today. Neil, can we go next slide? Just wanted to provide you a little background on Envision and our relationship with AVST. We're headquartered here in Seattle, Washington, and we were founded in 1994. And we've always been focused on the contact center market, on teams of people that are handling customer calls. and really helping improve the customer experience through helping improve the agent's experience as well. And we were excited to partner with AVST because you'll see in much of what I'm going to present today a lot of the similar messaging around ease of deployment, lower cost of deployment, ease of use, and a focus on data. And that's why we were excited to kind of complete the integration with TeamQ, because it really allows us to deploy in a very flexible manner, completely software-based and hosted in the cloud, or we can also do a premise-based solution or a hybrid of those as well. We've got lots of great customers out there using Click-to-Coach. A lot of them here focused in the Northwest, but certainly across North America and globally as well. Go ahead, Neil. And just to kind of address the contact center, or through evolution, really the engagement center, we recognize that there is a lot of interactions through phone calls. So we want to be able to capture and record those for artifact information, as well as for doing analysis and helping in a quality process and helping to coach our agents and improve customer experience. But we've also seen an uptick in other channels such as chat and email, social media responses, and we're able to also capture those interactions as well, have them collected in within Click-to-Coach to be reviewed and quality scored, just like a traditional phone call that might come into the system. And then if you go ahead and click there, Neil. And then we also saw a great need to be able to capture data around those interactions. As Neil mentioned, they can collect standard phone information that's interesting for a call or a recording, such as Annie or Dina's type information. But a lot of the other data that's collected through the questioning, through the process of the customer before they hit an agent, as well as some of that data dip information, is also available to Click-to-Coach through our integration with AVST. So from our perspective, AVST passes us what we would traditionally have to go out to and look for from CTI for call start, call stop information, but also a wealth of data around that interaction that can be passed to our call as well. So if it is a Lennox call and we want to be able to find all Lennox calls in Click-to-Coach to do quality review on those, we can. Or if it's a product ID or account number that you're interested in finding, you might be looking to do some first call resolution on calls that folks that had to call in multiple times, we can easily find that. But we can also then share those recordings with people outside of what would be in the traditional contact center or traditional team handling calls. So if you wanted to get specific product calls out to a product manager, or if somebody from marketing wanted to hear how some marketing messaging was being presented and how customers were reacting to that, we can also segment those calls quickly through the data and get those out to the right folks in the organization. So we'll go into a little bit about the pieces of the Click-to-Coach product and walk through those as well. Go ahead, Neil. So the key features here are full-time recording of both voice and screen. So not only do you get the voice, but as you play back the call, you can see everything that the agent did with their tools on their desktop. If they have 1, 2, or 3 screens, we'll record across all those screens, really identify how they're using their tools, where we might be able to help them with knowledge. If they're having any kind of issues accessing information within their screens, we'll be able to see that. You can also look at things around accuracy when you can play back the screen. It really is like walking up behind the agent and being able to look over their shoulder and watch them work when you play back the interactions. The other features that we have in there are the ability to create and use customized evaluation forms. So if you have different teams doing different work that you want to review from a different KPI perspective or different quality perspective, you can have forms for that. But really the idea is now as you play back these calls, you're starting to enter these evaluation forms, and that becomes the backbone for helping to really coach individual agents, see how folks are doing from a team perspective, from a overall contact center perspective or enterprise perspective, and be able to make decisions around that. We also provide some strong dashboarding and reporting within the system as well, so you can see that information at a glance and then dig into the details. And then a key feature that comes integrated as part of Click-to-Coach is e-learning. We have the ability to create e-learning content in 3 different ways, and we'll talk a little bit about those here in a couple screens. And then the desktop data tagging, certainly the data that TeamQ can pass us is very powerful and robust. We also have the ability to go in and capture data from other desktop applications if the need does arise. And we can use that same technology to pause and resume voice and screen recording for instances where PCI is required and we need to not record sensitive credit card information, as well as personally identifiable information as well. We can make sure that that's just not recorded in those interactions. And then additionally, if you, as an add-on feature, you can also add on speech analytics to really look for keywords or phrases within those interactions as they occur as well. Go ahead, Neil. We'll dig into each of these in a little bit more detail. So from the quality management perspective, again, you can pull up all interactions that were captured, whether they're voice and screen, back office, or email or chat type interactions, pull them up in the application. Then we can easily search on those by stock telephony fields, such as Annie and Dinas, or any of the other data that we've captured during those interactions can then help us sort, filter, and find calls that have the highest value from a quality perspective, or from an analytics perspective, or from somebody that wants to look at things such as products or do some additional analysis on first call resolution type of things. It allows us to pull up the calls, play back those interactions, and score them as we go, and then be able to send feedback directly to the agents, where they get within a portal. They'll get the interaction that was scored, they'll get the evaluation that went along with it, they'll get any coaching or e-learning, the content that we sent along with them, as well as any very personalized coaching from either notes that we entered into the system, or from a personal verbal annotation that we can also add to the feedback that we send out to the agents within their desktop. And then ultimately, the supervisor will get a return receipt that those interactions were opened and processed, as well as there's reporting on which evaluations have gone out, or coaching patches have gone out, and which ones still need to be addressed. Go ahead, Neil. So I mentioned this also begins the process of generating a lot of data around your agent and customer interactions, as well as some of the other data that we're collecting. So we have over 50 canned reports in the system, and custom reports can be added to the system as well. And a lot of those can be presented in a dashboard that are customizable by individual. So as a supervisor, I can really build up, what do I want to see on a daily basis when I logged in? What am I looking for trending? I can build, year-to-date reports, quarterly reports, daily trending reports, and then each of these can also be drilled into to get down to the raw data underneath of those, and the data can also be exported if you want to pull those into other analytics solutions, or build out some shareable reports outside the system as well. So a lot of ways to look at data, understand how individuals, teams, or contact centers are doing, and what steps to take next to help improve overall performance. Go ahead, Neil. And then the e-learning component is a very powerful piece of the Click-to-Coach solution. And this is really how you can take action and address and really help individuals and teams improve. We have 3 ways to create content. First, you can use the recorded interactions themselves and be able to clip out either the entire call or just a portion of the call around a best practice. You got somebody in there that's really doing something unique and is considered a best practice, or maybe somebody got some training and they're doing it really, really well. And now you want to clip that portion out into the library and create maybe onboarding curriculum to help onboard folks a little bit quicker, or distribute it out to agents along with their evaluation in areas where maybe there's an opportunity for help them improve. So you can really use your agents, your representatives, to build out the content. The second way is to turn the technology around on yourselves. So if you're a supervisor or a team lead, or maybe somebody in a training department, you can easily record your own voice and screen as you navigate through a PowerPoint or navigate through a website. We see a lot of support departments actually create video knowledge bases using this, so walking other reps through how to troubleshoot, navigate, find, resolve problems. It can be used for best practices around upsell, cross-sell in a sales organization, but you quickly create ad hoc content that can then be distributed or used in a classroom environment. And then the third way is you can link out to any URL accessible content you may have on your intranet or on the internet. So it could be a PDF, a policy document, it could be some existing videos from an LMS that you might have, or you can link out to corporate YouTube videos. But again, it's another third way to use existing content, but then be able to distribute it within the Click-to-Coach architecture. Neil? An add-on feature that you can also get with the integration with AVST is workforce management. Workforce management is really kind of the art and science behind looking at historical call arrival patterns or interaction arrival patterns, and then being able to apply that to predict future headcount or future number of hours to meet your predicted service levels, and then be able to schedule agents to come to work or to be available for times to meet those service levels. So it's a powerful tool, not only for forecasting workload for unique maybe weeks or days during the year, such as what happens historically after 4th of July or after Labor Day. What do my call volumes look like, and what are the spikes, and when should I have agents arrive and be scheduled and take breaks and lunches. It also lets you take a proactive look at where do I hire next? What shifts do I need to fulfill in the future that are going to be most beneficial for the organization to meet my service levels and improve customer experience? Or you can also look at it from a skills perspective. If I'm going to do training, where's my lowest hanging fruit? Where's my biggest bang for the buck to improve within one of my skills, so that I can kind of cross-train folks to be able to handle multiple types of calls. In Neil's example, where we have one Linux guy, or you have a team that focuses on one particular thing, if I could get 5 more people that have that skill, is that going to help me meet my volumes? Is that going to help me maybe reduce the need to hire new folks, because now I've cross-trained and better utilized the people that I have? Go ahead, Neil. And then just a little bit about desktop data gathering. Again, through TeamQ, we'll be able to get a lot of the data that you already have within your desktop applications, but we can also go in and tag some of that data ourselves through our various application listeners, and pull data in as metadata within our interactions as well, again, for sorting, finding, and providing more analytics around interactions. And then this is also the method that we would use to look for maybe when a payment application is opened, or when you get to a payment portion of an interaction, we can pause the voice and screen recording, and then resume voice and screen recording when we've kind of passed that critical area of sensitive information, and continue on through our workflow. This can also be used to look at application workflow for non-phone events as well. So if you have folks that are doing back office work or after call work, and you want to know how they're utilizing their applications and how long they're in and out of them on average, we can take a look at that as well and provide you reporting on that, so you can kind of analyze productivity or where you might do your next training event. And then keyword spotting, phrase spotting, is our ability to take word or language that is important to your organization, and we'll populate the system with those words that really have meaning to you, so that as those calls are processed, we'll find those words, we'll mark them in the call, we'll mark them in the database, and be able to provide you some reporting, so you can look at trending, you can do some drill down, you can also pull back interactions based on language. So if I just wanted to pull back calls with the word invoice and fee in there, when I set up my searches and filters, I can just pull back those calls and do some analysis on what's going on with my invoicing, and maybe I'm getting some complaints around fees, and that's how I would get those calls back in a quick manner. Go ahead. So we've worked with AVST to put together 3 primary packages that are available. The first one is Click to Coach, and again, that's the voice and screen recording, evaluation, e-learning, the agent browser portal to get feedback directly in their seats, and help coach and train. The second package includes the workforce management component, so the forecasting and scheduling that would go along with the Click to Coach product, and that's what we call our WFO, or Workforce Optimization Suite. And then we have an advanced Workforce Optimization Suite that would also include speech analytics and desktop data tagging. Next. And kind of how do we do this? How do we capture these recordings and interactions? And again, in many cases, it can be a software-only deployment. We have a tight integration with TeamQ. So TeamQ is telling us when to start and stop recordings and passing us data. So we don't have to have that traditional integration to the PBX and to a CTI integration with the PBX. We get it all from TeamQ. If you're in a soft phone environment, all you need to deploy is software on the desktop. We'll record voice and screen directly at the desktop, and then it gets pushed up to the Click-to-Code platform, which is hosted on Microsoft Azure. If you have a phone set, a digital set, or a voice over IP set next to the PC, then we would use an audio adapter cable that goes between the phone and PC and still capture the voice and screen directly at the desktop, and then push all the contents up to the cloud so that it's available through the Click-to-Coach interface. So real simple. It really eliminates a lot of the services that are traditionally associated with these types of products. It also reduces the time to delivery as well. Go ahead. Then some of the key takeaways to kind of reiterate. We can easily collect and record and analyze interactions with Click-to-Coach in our integration with TeamQ. Full enterprise class features, and it's 100% hosted in Microsoft Azure. We have over 20 years in the business focused on agent and coaching, performance management, and improving customer experience. We've brought all that within our product Click-to-Coach. Really easy to use, real focus on an easy to use interface, very intuitive to use, and with a little bit of training, you're up and using the product fully. We have the user definable dashboards to quickly spot trends and drill down for additional information. Additional features around speech and data analytics are available within the system. And it really is a next generation architecture that allows for lower cost and lower TCO. Again, there's no hardware servers to deploy or to purchase and maintain. You're also going to get upgrades immediately. When we upgrade Click-to-Coach, you get the next version and the next take advantage of the next features in the product. You don't have to wait a year or plan years out to do a on-premise upgrade or a forklift upgrade. Again, it is easy to deploy. Most customers are up and running in a couple weeks rather than months with traditional platforms that are out there. And it's a fully multi-tenant architecture. Again, reducing costs, reducing onboarding time, and getting you up and running quickly with Click-to-Coach. Again, if you have interest in learning more, I'd love to provide any questions or any answers to questions you have, or schedule a demo through your AVST representative. So thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, David and Neil. Looks like we're ready to go ahead and start taking questions. So if you, there's a couple of questions in the queue already. If you'd like to submit a question and you haven't already done that, you can use the orange arrow in the upper corner to expand your options. The question box should be toward the bottom. And I will also draw your attention to the handouts area. I went ahead and posted these slides there. So if you'd like to download those are available. And we will also, in the follow-up email later today, we'll include a link to the slides as well. And okay, so I think we can go ahead with the questions. I'll go ahead and get it going. I can't necessarily tell this first one which to direct it at, so maybe you can both answer. Regarding online training, so for the agent and the users, is it the app fairly intuitive, or is there a lot of training required?
I'll step in here first real quick and then give David a chance. So TeamQ is pretty straightforward, very little training required, a little bit of explanation of what the options are, and then of course how it gets deployed, the options vary a bit. But you saw the screen. Basically that's a list of calls. All the agent has to understand, if they're using the pull mode, is to select a call and hit the take call button. All the rest will be automated. If you're using screen pops, there's one place where they'll have to understand how to trigger a screen pop. And if they're using push mode, it's like any other call center. The calls will just come to them. David?
Yeah. Again, very intuitive interface. We do a combination of remote training. So when we bring somebody on board, we'll have one of our trainers get on and do a series remote training events specific to different roles within Click-to-Coach. And then embedded in the product, we also have a series of video training in there as well. So if somebody wasn't able to attend the training, they can go in and play clips specific to different parts of the product, or if you onboard new folks after the fact, they can get training from there as well. The other nice thing is that the Supervisor portal is laid out in a very intuitive product, and the agent portal is a kind of a smaller version of that. So it's very similar in nature as well. And so if somebody's been trained as an agent to access their recordings and get feedback through the product, they're also very familiar with it and in line for maybe taking on a lead role or a supervisor role that might utilize Click-to-Coach as well.
Okay, thanks, David. Next, maybe you covered this. If a supervisor records the call, is the agent always aware the call is being recorded?
This will be a two-parter as well.
Yeah.
Because we have our own call recording. If you just wanted very basic call recording, then you could enable it just through ours. If you want anything, with the features that David talked about, you'd go with theirs. But if you did turn on our all call recording, it can be set up so that everything is recorded. The agent would not be aware of it in terms of they don't have to take any actions. Or ours could be set up where the agent initiates the recording. It would really be by choice. David?
Yeah, so when you set up Click-to-Coach, it's automatically going to record the voice and screen with no interaction or no awareness at the agent level. It just collects those interactions and makes them available through the UI. The supervisor does have the ability to live view the desktop if they like, so they can kind of see what's going on a desktop and initiate an on-demand recording if they like. And if you give the agents the capability via permissions, they can also have some on-demand recording capability as well within the system. But by and large, it's recorded automatically and seamless to the agent, and then available for playback at a later time by the supervisor or quality folks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next question. To be clear, the Envision offerings are an optional add-on to TeamQ. Is that correct? I thought I heard call recording was going to be included with TeamQ in the next version.
Yeah, so yes, there is a basic call recording. So we can set up call recording where everything's recorded, call recording where the agent initiates the recording, and something called provisional, where all calls are recorded, but unless the agent chooses to save the recording during the call, then it gets deleted during the nightly routines. Now, in that case, what you end up with is a directory on CX with all the recordings and a management tool that allows supervisors to get in and process those recordings. But you really have to decide what to do with those recordings if you want to archive them off the system or something along those lines. It's not really a long-term historical recording kind of package. David?
Yeah, and Click-to-Coach is definitely an option. I think the main differentiator there would be we would record with both voice and screen, so you can see what the agent's doing on the desktop as well, along with the management tools that I discussed. But it's definitely an add-on feature to the AVST embedded recording.
Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification. And thanks again, Neil and David, for your presentations. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.